Hi, hello. Welcome to the episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is June the 30th, 2026. Hopefully, this episode finds you well, in good spirits, and high hopes. As for me, I'm doing pretty good. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Hopefully, the day treated you well. Hopefully, you had a good one. As for me, as for mine, it's been good. It's been pretty swell. Trying not to complain. Woke up overall feeling pretty good today. Another day of pain management in its own way, but overall, it was fine. We managed, we marched. But I got myself together, got myself to work. There was a good amount of work for most of the day, but we finally, my coworker came back from vacation, so we were pretty much able to bang everything out. And I think I had maybe about an hour and a half of work time left. So I did luck out because I didn't wind up doing putbacks. I went upstairs and just cut down boxes, which was nice. Actually, I was like cutting down so many boxes. I was like starting to get a little bit of an arm workout. I was like, okay, this is kind of helping. This is useful. Um, but post work, we didn't go to the gym because actually the gym is closed. I think I mentioned that in the previous episode, but they are putting in new equipment and won't be open until July 2nd. So I had to improvise and did a house workout, a little home routine. So I have I've explained this before, but I have a bar, like a long bar, or well, not necessarily a long bar, but a barbell, whatever. And no weights because I don't have them. I definitely would like to invest in them one day, but just kind of lifted the bar around, did some exercises with that. That's at least like 45 pounds. So, and I was able to work up enough of a sweat that I felt good. Did some push-ups, did some sit-ups. A little bit of Planet Fitness at home, if you will. Really though, no cardio, but hey, considering I had to walk up and down some stairs, cut down some boxes, things felt pretty good. We'll take it for a makeshift pump. But then after that, I stretched a little bit, had my snack, and got into some research. I knew there was going to be a couple of stories that I was like pretty pressed to talk about, even though I'm not going to really enjoy talking about more Supreme Court, but we'll get to it. Let's go ahead and do our startup though, and let's get into the news. Mm. 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 Ooh. Okay. Our first story comes from CNN. Six killed in shooting at Germany. Six killed in shooting at German youth facility, police say. 4 women and 2 men have been killed in a shooting at a youth welfare facility in the northern German city of Stade, police said on Monday. Stade police said several others were injured in the shooting. 5 people died at the scene, while a 6th person succumbed to their injuries in the hospital, police said. All were adults. The victims were employees of the facility, not residents, a German police official said in a briefing. Reuters news agency reported. The alleged perpetrator, who was arrested shortly after the shooting occurred, is a 45-year-old male Turkish citizen, police said on Monday evening. He was born in Germany. An investigation into the circumstances of the shooting is ongoing, but authorities believe the suspect's motive could be related to his family. I believe one of the first things I heard when I was listening to this on the BBC was like they came out and said, "Hey, we do not believe this is terrorism." And I was like, well, and you always like when you hear that first, you go, well, why do you think that? But then when you hear that this was related to some kind of domestic dispute in terms of like him getting custody of his kids, and it's like, oh, okay, I can understand how you're cutting it off and saying, hey, there's no way this is that. He had an appointment at at the youth welfare facility with various staff members regarding custody of his 3-month-old daughter, police said in a statement. The suspect's daughter and her 34-year-old mother were both present at the time of the shooting. The daughter was placed in the custody of the Youth Welfare Office. The mother is still a suspect of police measures. In addition, a 65-year-old woman who police said was the driver of a getaway vehicle and has close ties to the family involved was also taken into police custody. The area has been cleared and there is no ongoing threat to the public, police told CNN. Police have asked the public to avoid the area. So starting off with that story, obviously it's always unfortunate when we cover, violent, situations like this. And yes, it does happen even in an international way. And I always feel like there's someone out here or someone out there who hears these kind of stories and goes, well, see, it's everywhere. It's just like America at the end of the day, whether you have good gun laws or not. And it's like, look, regardless, you are not having the same statistical conversation about the amounts of gun violence. But I get sick and blue in the face talking about that and, defending that point or whatever. But that being said, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. Any of these situations when they happen is always unfortunate. I always try to cover that and, send condolences to the people, who've lost their lives and, lost family, all that fucking shit. It's sad. But yeah, covering that up first. Moving on to another unfortunate topic though. From NPR News, Supreme Court upholds bans on transgender athletes participating in women's and girls' sports. The Supreme Court once again leaped into the culture wars on Tuesday, ruling that states may ban transgender girls from participating in sports at publicly funded schools. Justice Brett Kavanaugh, who has long coached his daughters and other girls' basketball teams at schools, wrote the court's majority opinion. The Constitution and Title IX do not require an overhaul of women's and girls' sports throughout America, he wrote, adding that transgender girls and women who want to play sports deserve respect and should not be ostracized or vilified. There's a cruel irony in that because this is a man who is actively participating in ostracizing and vilifying transgender people. But I guess in his mind, he doesn't see it that way. I guess he's saying, hey, well, we're protecting the women and we're making sure that things are fair. And it's like, where in so many of these situations, what is a person supposed to do? They're supposed to then play sports with their assigned birth, gender, whatever. Or you have this fantasy idea there's this other, trans league that they can join or what have you. You shouldn't have to do any of this or at all. But here we are, fucking fighting over these subjects tooth and nail. Obviously there's more details here. It goes through the two people involved. We've covered a little bit of the story at the beginning when they took on the case. It's just unfortunate because even though this has happened and it's a blow, there's most likely more blows to come because there's, always another case that can crop up that tackles another facet of this and covers another angle, all the while so that conservatives can, more and more encroach on people's rights just so they can, quote unquote, just feel safer and make their kids, quote unquote, feel safer. It's like, no, you're doing this for your own fucking mental ego, whatever, because you're afraid of someone who is different than you for some fucking reason. God for fucking bid. I'm confused. Make them stop. What's in their pants? This is an ongoing fucking conversation, an ongoing battle we should not have to have. But here we are, year after fucking year, right? So I wanted to highlight it. Obviously, it's unfortunate that it went this way. I'm not surprised. We know how this conservative supermajority is working. It's not new. But let's move on to other Supreme Court news from the NPR. Supreme Court upholds birthright citizenship on constitutional grounds. In a sharp rebuke to President Trump, the Supreme Court ruled Tuesday that the Constitution guarantees automatic birthright citizenship to virtually all children born in the United States. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote the court's 6-3 opinion, citing both the colonists' demands for the rights of Englishmen, as well as the abolitionists' lauding of the ancient and universal rule of citizenship by birth alone. Citizenship then and now was the right to have rights to freely participate in our political community. The framers of the 14th Amendment extended that promise to every freeborn person in this land, Roberts wrote. We keep that promise today. The vote was 6-3, depending on how you count it. Although 5 justices signed on to Roberts' opinion, a sixth, Justice Brett Kavanaugh, agreed that only federal legislation enacted in the 1950s grants automatic citizenship for children born in the U.S. It's like he's doing, actually, like, I agree with you guys, but let's put a little asterisk here. Motherfucker, whatever. It would have been 5-4 if you didn't. You just kind of wanted to be on the right side of history, but you wanted to be a fucking ass about it this time. Like, fuck, I've said this before, I just hate especially how you have, I feel like the biggest focus of this is usually Brett Kavanaugh or Amy Coney Barrett, about how they just play this quote, like they LARP as like moderates when they want to, and they're almost always weird about it. They have some weird odd ass slant about how they want to go about it, and it's like, I'm still booing you for this shit, man, but whatever. I do want to read a little bit more though. Justice Clarence Thomas wrote the lead dissent, a 91-page opus that agreed with President Trump's assertion, just getting his dick in his mouth, that the 14th Amendment only applied to former slaves and their descendants. The Thomas dissent added that he was not sure that today's majority opinion would stand the test of time. The opinion was joined by Justice Neil Gorsuch, with Justice Samuel Alito writing separately. He wrote his own shit. He's like, I want to get specific, and I don't know the fucking details on that. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, who, like Thomas, is African American, responded to some of the themes in the Thomas dissent. Despite his long-standing endorsement of a colorblind society, Justice Thomas now surprisingly suggests that the citizenship clause was a race-conscious remedial measure relating only to freed slaves, she wrote. It's like, I'm glad that she calls the shit out. But yeah, I mean, we all know that Thomas is just going to keep glazing whatever the fuck Trump puts out, because at the end of the day, he wants to see this kind of shit enacted. He got his popcorn for this shit. I feel like it's without a doubt he's probably the furthest on the on the right on the spectrum, but I mean, they're all fucking the same on this fucking shit in my opinion. But whatever. I'm happy to see Trump take an L here. They go through more details. I mean, literally, this shit goes back to, I believe, 1895, when the first person, came back, from seeing his family in China and was like, wait, I was born here. Why can't I be here? And they go, oh, shit. Well, that's a predicament, because we want to say that you're not like us, but you're born here, because it's just such a, like, I feel like a black and white thing, and it's anytime it's weird to me whenever I see a country not follow that, like that's in their doctrine, to be like, no, actually, your parents weren't born here, so you shouldn't be considered a citizen. Like, why? Like, this just makes sense when you go about it with your lizard ass pig brain, and you go, okay, here on this land, where were you born? Here, like. Well, my parents might have been born somewhere else, but I was literally born in this place, this state. How are you going to take that from a person, man? So yeah, you really have to take a fucking crowbar to fucking the whole fucking thing. You gotta light the whole fucking goddamn Constitution on fire to make this work, in my opinion. And I just also think on the moral grounds it doesn't make fucking sense, right? But, I mean, here we are. Yet again, another thing that just the Trump administration has been fighting for tooth and fucking nail to make happen. He's really bummed about it. But oh well. Trump's got overall more wins than losses this week from the Supreme Court, so I'm sure he's fine. Maybe not. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not keeping the scoreboard up, but whatever. Fuck him. All right, let's move on. Let's go. We're going to Peru. We'll take a quick water break, but this is from The Guardian. All right. Peru's Kikyo Fujimori wins presidential election and latest victory for Latin American right. The Peru's conservative president-elect Kikyo Fujimori has vowed to restore order and hope after defeating left-wing candidate Roberto Sanchez in the latest victory for the resurgent Latin American right. Fujimori won the June 7th presidential runoff by the slimmest of margins, outpolling Sanchez by fewer than 50,000 votes out of more than 18 million ballots cast, the final results showed. Peru's National Electoral Jury is scheduled to officially announce a winner on July 3rd after weeks spent reviewing contested ballots. Each time we draw closer to starting on the path of order and hope for all Peruvians, she wrote on X after being proclaimed the winner. I like that. She's almost doing like a right wing like Obama type populist speak of just like, hey, I'm gonna keep hitting those words. You know what I mean? Her order and hope is like change, hope. You know, type fucking shit. But you just spin it and reword it. And you can use it, and no matter what your ideology is. Isn't that neat? Let's see. The 51-year-old daughter of late President Alberto Fujimori secured the top office on her fourth attempt. The election was fought on rising crime and chronic political instability, which has been the Indian countries which has seen the Indian countries burn through 8 presidents in a decade. I mean, that's still better than like the UK, but whatever. With the extortion gang, well, I think at least it is, but whatever. With the extortion gangs and contract killings on the rise, Fujimori vowed a strong hand like that of her autocratic father, which I was like, damn, like I had to stop on that, and it made me think. I'm like, yet again, like this really reminded me of the Philippines, and I look at like the Marcos family, where it's like, you had this guy who was literally viewed as a tyrant, a terrible fucking person, like did all kinds of atrocities on your own fucking people. You get him out of the whole fucking country, but then there's this long-standing, like almost like Paul Atreides style comeback, and like you have Ferdinand Bong Bong Marcos, Marcos Jr. back in the bitch, and like I guess the same thing here for the Fujimori family. They're able to get it back with the daughter. The prodigal daughter returns. Let's see here. Alberto Fujimori won praise for crushing Maoist rebels and taming hyperinflation, but was later disgraced, exiled, and jailed for corruption and crimes against humanity committed in the names of fighting terrorism. Damn, dude, but at least you fucking beat communism. Man, at least you put your toes down on that shit. Yay, congratulations. Woo. Oops. Yeah, it turns out this guy was a fucking bad guy. These things happen a lot. History likes to repeat itself and rhyme a lot. At one point, he took a lead. Sanchez has yet to react to the announcement of the results. At one point, he took a lead in the vote count, but Fujimori soon surpassed him. Sanchez had warned he would not recognize a government headed by his rival, alleging administrative irregularities in the handling of overseas portion of the vote. Fujimori will take office on July 28th for a 5-year term. We'll keep reading a little bit more. We're almost done with the article. Let's see. She became first lady at 19 after her mother publicly broke with Fujimori and trained in the United States as a business administrator. For decades, the Fujimori brand has been a help and a hindrance, giving her instant recognition, a loyal voter base, and deep political networks, but also plenty of critics. So yeah, I mean, I know I made the comparison to the Philippines, but I mean, we've looked at the world at a bird's eye, and we've seen a lot of places go to the right, over the past, just in the span of this podcast of, a few years, but also, pan it back, I don't know, 10 or whatever, but, we have George Maloney, we have Sanai Takaichi, that's Italy, Japan, respectively, like very similar in that regard of like, the Iron Lady, hey, it's, if the right-wing populism is working well enough in America, why don't we do that here? But also you just look on the ground and people say, hey, we have a crime problem. We have an instability problem. I don't trust my politicians. You look at your incumbent and you say, well, this is a left-wing candidate. I'm going to go to the opposite. I'm going to instinctually run away from this motherfucker and go the opposite way. Into the arms of a dictator's daughter. And so she goes. That's how it is sometimes. What can you do? What can you do? But that's not all we have for today. I have one more thing I wanted to cover. It's not good news. Well, it is just news. It is sad, but it's an update. I wanted to go back to Venezuela and close out there. The number has unfortunately gone up a lot on the death toll from the earthquakes. So I just wanted to kind of close out there with a little bit. But yeah, let's go ahead and take our last break, and then we'll close it out in Venezuela. Ooh. Ooh la la. All right. From the Associated Press. Venezuelans search more earthquake ruins as attention turns to humanitarian crisis. With the window for finding survivors shrinking fast, Venezuelans combed Monday through more ruins of buildings toppled by last week's powerful back to back earthquakes, and attention turned to the country's humanitarian crisis that could persist for years. Relief organizations say the first 72 hours after a natural disaster is the most crucial time period for rescues, though survival can be extended if people have access to food and water. 5 days after the twin quakes, questions loomed about whether the cash-strapped government will be able to coordinate the effort needed to care for thousands of people who have been left homeless. In other developments, a 4.6 magnitude aftershock rumbled through the disaster zone in the northern state of LaGuardia, which I've talked about aftershocks a good amount when we wind up covering these things. And yes, you can say, oh, 4.6, that's not much, but you're already potentially out of your house. You've been out of your house for a few days. Maybe you're thinking, okay, like it's been enough time. Let me go and maybe collect some things or whatever. And you do on that day, and then this happens. You know, you could potentially now be buried alive, just like other people potentially. So it is a very scary thing. Also, something I didn't mention when we initially covered this, but I have before in other situations. A 7.6 or like, you know, an earthquake of of the same magnitude in multiple places can obviously affect it differently. And obviously, in so many ways, the physical infrastructure of an area plays a huge factor. So like a 7 point something in Japan, you know, can do a lot of damage for sure. But also they have a very good, strong infrastructure and protocol set in place so that casualties are at like the utmost minimum, and like things usually go a lot better than, let's say, the same kind of earthquake in like Turkey or like Venezuela. Just because, once again, when we're talking about the actual infrastructure, the physical infrastructure, and then the political infrastructure that allows it to get bad, when these things happen, they go to the worst case scenarios very fucking quickly. It's been really sad to hear that the death toll has shot up like over 1,000. We're at 1,700 as of right now. I would not be surprised to hear that number go up, you know, much higher, unfortunately. But there have been stories of people who have been saved, which is good, you know, because they were, by some miracle, by some, you know, whatever the fuck you want to call it, you know, we're able to be alive. And then, you know, people were able to say, hey, wait, there are people here. Let's dig. Let's get people out. And like, you know, some people have been rescued. That's great. You know, even days after, where you go, oh, well, this is actually now in the recovery phase. So it's good that that's still a thing and that's still happening. But it's so heartbreaking to hear stories of like a son trying to like dig out their parents. And then you look down the street and there's military just doing traffic work. And it's like, this is not how it should be. Like, why are only the people, or why are the like resources so limited? But once again, going back to the whole infrastructure issue, that is not there. It is not, you know, is not well established, unfortunately. And a lot of people are left to their own devices. You know, they're not getting any kind of fucking help from their government, which is really fucking sad. You are getting international help, which is good, but, you know, kind of surprise, surprise, US aid would be something that would be very helpful here. We don't have that shit anymore because we fucking cut it. You know, Trump said, nah, no mas on that shit. So, you know, that's not a thing. Now, granted, I mentioned before, we have put in money, I think like over $1 million. And I think we've put in actually more now, and we are sending like, you know, people to support and things of that nature. But once again, that is not as effective as something like a US aid. You actually have people who are really entrenched, have a network that would already be ready and active on the ground instead of just coming in cold turkey. So yeah, it's unfortunate that, you know, we've shot ourselves in the foot on our international aid, just more or less out of spite. It's not like we're actually making money off of that. It's not like we're actually benefiting and like, ooh, so much for America. Like, we literally threw that shit and then some into a fucking war with Iran that we're not doing anything. So yeah, it's frustrating to see this shit. But hopefully more people are rescued. Hopefully, you know, less people are getting like caught up in the aftershocks. Hopefully there's less of that in general. You know, and I know, like, what is going back to normal in Venezuela? Shit is still hot even without a fucking earthquake. Shit is still pretty desperate right now, even without the situation at hand. It's fucking hardcore out here. I get it. But yeah, obviously I'm hoping for things to get better. So yeah, I just wanted to close out with that update. Excuse me. That's going to be the episode for the day. I'm going to let you know I'm not going to be doing an episode tomorrow. Sorry about it. I know I'm missing the first of the month, but we'll definitely do roll call. We'll definitely do Newsy roll call on the 2nd when I get back on Thursday. Let's knock on wood for that. But yeah, become a newsie, think about it, ponder it, ruminate on it. You're helping out the effort. Patreon.com/Suzanne News. There you go. That's where you go. There's a link in the bio or whatever. You can always find it. You can subscribe and become a patron for free. I will say that. I always appreciate any kind of new follower or whatever. That's cool. Thumbs up for that. Thank you. But, in order to get the shout out, access to any of the extra stuff, little notes thing, little extra archive episode, you gotta pay a little money. You gotta actually become the newsie, if you will. Pay the toll. Anyway. Let's see. But free ways, though, to hit me up, IsaiahNews1@gmail.com. Send me a good old-fashioned email. We love those. You can be up any on the socials. I'm there. Let's see. Subscribe to the YouTube, TikTok. I don't know. All of them. All those things. I'm getting fuzzy on this shit. Let's see. Leave a like. Leave a cool comment. Sharing is always caring. 5 stars on the Spotify, Apple, whatever app that allows you to do that. I really appreciate a good review. Say, hey, I enjoyed this, baby. I don't know. That's always nice. Thank you. But if not, that's okay. If you don't want to do that, that's okay. Hopefully you didn't hate this. Hopefully you're not just hate watching, hate listening. That would be pretty intense. But I mean, hey, hi, how's it going? But no, hopefully you've enjoyed it. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for being a friend. And hopefully I see you soon for some more good news. I love ya. Bye-bye. Mwah.